American and Iranian officials are deep in negotiations in Muscat, Oman, talks that could determine whether we're headed toward peace or war in the Middle East. These negotiations are unfolding as we speak. Let me tell you what's happening right now in Muscat, and I want to emphasize right now. US and Iranian delegations are in separate rooms at an undisclosed location. Oman's foreign minister is walking between them, carrying messages back and forth. They started at 10 a.m. local time this morning, and the talks are still going. The American team includes Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Admiral Brad Cooper from Central Command. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi is leading their side. They've been at this for hours. 2 rounds completed so far, about 90 minutes each. No breakthrough yet. And we're hearing these talks could continue through tonight, possibly into tomorrow. So what does each side actually want from these talks? The United States is pushing for what they call a comprehensive deal. They want Iran to stop enriching uranium entirely, to curb its ballistic missile program, to stop supporting proxy militias, and to improve its human rights record. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has made it clear this can't just be about the nuclear program, and he's hinted that if talks fail, military options remain on the table. Iran, on the other hand, wants to keep this narrow. They're saying, let's talk about the nuclear program only. They want sanctions relief in exchange for limits on enrichment, but their missile program, their regional alliances, those are what they call red lines, completely off the table. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has warned that any US attack would trigger a regional war. You can already see the problem here. The two sides aren't even agreeing on what they're negotiating about. So, as we speak, mediators are trying to bridge this massive gap. Will Iran agree to expand the agenda? Will the US accept a narrower deal? Those questions are being answered in real time tonight. These talks are happening today because 3 days ago, Monday, we saw direct military confrontations. A US fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone near our aircraft carrier. Iranian boats tried to seize a US oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. A Navy destroyer had to step in. That was Monday. Today is Friday. That's how close we are to the edge. And it gets worse. Right now, US aircraft carriers are positioned in the Gulf. Iran is enriching uranium close to weapons-grade levels. President Trump has issued warnings. Iran's supreme leader has threatened regional war if attacked. This isn't happening in a vacuum. These talks are taking place while both militaries are on high alert. These talks almost didn't happen. 24 hours ago, this was nearly cancelled. Why? Iran refused to meet in Istanbul where it was originally planned. They demanded Oman, insisted on no observers, wanted it bilateral only. The US almost walked away. What changed? 9 Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, others, frantically lobbied both sides. They told Washington and Tehran, you have to talk because if you don't, we're all going to war. That pressure worked. Both sides showed up today. But the fact that it took 9 countries lobbying to make this happen tells you how fragile this is. So what are the possible outcomes tomorrow? In the best case scenario, both sides agree to keep talking and announce some kind of temporary de-escalation. Maybe Iran freezes its enrichment program in exchange for partial sanctions relief. That would buy time and prevent immediate conflict. The more likely scenario? A stalemate. The talks end with no agreement and we're right back where we started. High tensions, more sanctions, more military posturing, but not quite war. The worst case scenario, the talks collapse completely and things escalate. The US could strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran could retaliate through its proxy forces or close the Strait of Hormuz, where about 20% of the world's oil passes through. President Trump has suggested that failure could lead to actions far worse than previous military strikes. All 3 scenarios are still on the table tonight. I know some of you are thinking, why does this matter to me? Let me tell you. If the Strait of Hormuz closes, which is a real possibility if these talks fail, 20% of the world's oil supply gets cut off. Gas prices explode, not next month, next week. Your costs at the pump double. Inflation spikes. The economy slows. A war in the Middle East means humanitarian crisis, refugee flows, opportunities for terrorist groups, and a potential nuclear arms race if Iran gets the bomb. What's happening in Oman right now affects your life directly. We're expecting updates within the next few hours. Our sources tell us the talks are at a critical juncture. Iran has hinted at some flexibility on enrichment, but only with full sanctions relief guaranteed. The US has suggested phased agreements, but only if Iran accepts the broader agenda. Neither side has blinked yet. Oman is doing everything possible to mediate. They're experienced at this, but they can't force agreement if both sides refuse to compromise. The moment we get significant news, progress, breakdown, anything, we'll break in immediately. What happens in Muscat over the next 24 hours could determine whether we see diplomacy succeed or military conflict begin. Both sides are in those rooms right now, deciding, will they find common ground? Will they walk away? Will they compromise enough to avoid catastrophe? We'll bring you updates the moment we have them.